A stunning young explorer uncovers a buried tomb deep in ancient American ruins, but one touch drags her back in time, into a forgotten civilization ruled by spirits and war. Lost in a brutal era of conquest and chaos, she's hunted by Varrock, a terrifying skull-faced entity feeding on fear. Panic rising, she runs through jungles shrouded in mist where shadows move too fast and silence screams louder than words. But just when all hope fades, Corin, a mysterious warrior, appears. Can he save her? Can she escape? This is a story of ancient secrets, time fractures, supernatural chases, and a battle between good and evil across centuries. I never believed in ancient curses. Those things belonged in movies, not real life. But standing at the edge of the excavation site in New Mexico, I felt something shift inside me. The wind had a strange chill, and the air around the ruins felt thick. My name's Camille, 24, archaeology grad student. I thought this dig would be my breakthrough. Turns out I was right, for all the wrong reasons. The tomb was buried deep under layers of volcanic ash. Carvings covered in moss depicted creatures with skull faces, green eyes, and sharp fangs. My team leader, Dr. Alvarez, told me to avoid the center chamber until sunrise. I didn't listen. I slipped in alone that night, flashlight shaking in my hand. There was a faint hum in the air, like the room itself was alive. In the middle stood a stone altar. Something about it pulled me forward. As I touched the worn surface, the world cracked open, like reality shattered. There was no sound, no light, just pressure and then silence. When I woke up, I was in a jungle, not modern, no roads, no towers, only torchlight, and people. Warriors in feathered armor stared at me like I was a ghost. They dragged me to their high priestess, a woman named Tazali. Her language was strange, but somehow I understood. She said I had crossed through time, back to the age of forgotten empires, back when spirits still whispered through the trees, and that's when I saw him. The man with the skull-like face, no eyes, just glowing green orbs in his sockets. His name was Varrock. They said he wasn't human, that he'd lived for centuries, feeding off fear. I felt it too, like he could reach inside my chest. Tazali warned me not to run, but of course I did. The jungle became a maze. I ran through roots and fog, chased by shadows that moved faster than wind. Then someone grabbed my arm, a man, scarred, tired, fierce. His name was Corin. He said he hunted Varrock for years, ever since the beast took his sister. He didn't trust me at first, thought I was sent to lure him. But when he saw the mark burned into my wrist, the same as his, he nodded. Fate, he said. Together, we made it to the old temple. They said it was the only place Varrock couldn't step inside. But we weren't alone. A girl named Alira followed us. She was quiet, watched everything. She spoke of the eclipse that opened the rift, the same one that dragged me here. We had 3 nights before it closed again. If I wasn't back by then, I'd be trapped forever. Every hour, Varrock came closer. We heard drums from the forest, leaves that never stopped moving. No animals, just silence and then screams. I wanted to go home, but more than that, I didn't want to die here, forgotten in a time that shouldn't exist. Corin said if I made it back, I had to tell people. Not to warn them, but to remember. Because these lands, these monsters, these echoes, they were once real, still are, somewhere. And sometimes when I close my eyes, I see Varrock's face in the dark, and I wonder, did I leave him behind, or did something follow me back? The stone floor beneath me pulsed like it had a heartbeat. I didn't dare breathe too loud. Every sound echoed too clearly in these ruins. I had followed the markings on the walls, ancient glyphs I couldn't read but somehow understood. A sudden whisper floated behind me. When I turned, no one was there. I told myself it was just wind, but I didn't believe it. My name, Ayla, had been carved into the rock before I ever arrived. That was the first thing that made me question if time had bent around me. The tunnels narrowed as I moved forward. Something in the air shifted, thicker, heavier. Torches lit themselves along the walls, and then I saw him. Varrock, or whatever that thing was. His face looked burned away, a skull wrapped in skin. No eyes, just deep green light staring out of hollow sockets. I froze, but my legs didn't. They pulled me back instinctively. I ran. The stone beneath me trembled with each step. He didn't chase me like a person. He just appeared, in doorways, behind walls, in my shadow. A figure jumped between us. A man with ash-colored skin, a leather chest plate, and calm in his eyes. He held no weapon, just raised one hand. The skull face paused. "You don't belong here," the stranger said to me without moving his lips. His name was Korin. He knew what Varrock was. He said this place wasn't just a tomb, it was a gateway. Varrock vanished into the wall, but I knew he wasn't gone. We reached a chamber shaped like a sun. Statues of forgotten gods stared down at us. A woman appeared from the mist. Sarah, a guardian who once lived centuries before I was born. She recognized me. She called me a key. I asked her what that meant, but she looked toward Korin, as if only he could explain. He didn't. He only said time was fraying, and I was caught between threads. I started remembering things I hadn't lived. A crown, fire, hands reaching through stone. I couldn't tell if they were memories or this world trying to make me part of it. That night, I couldn't sleep. The air hummed with voices. Sarah warned me to stay close, but I left the room. I felt drawn to a staircase leading down into water. I saw my reflection ripple, then change. My face was older, tired, scared. Behind me in the water, Varrock stood without moving. His presence alone froze the air. But again, Korin appeared. He placed his palm on the water, and the image shattered like glass. I didn't ask where he learned this, or why he could stop Varrock. Some things didn't need answers, not yet. We traveled further the next day, deeper into jungle ruins where war once boiled between tribes, burned villages and stone towers still warm after centuries. The past lived here. We found symbols painted in blood-red dust, not blood, dust, and the drawings moved when you blinked. A circle, a serpent, a woman with my eyes. Sarah took my hand and said, "Time loops until someone breaks it. You're the one who can." My throat dried. What if breaking it meant I'd never return home? What if home was never real to begin with? That night, the sky turned green. The stars flickered like candles. We hid in an old temple, but the walls couldn't keep Varrock out. He stepped through stone like it was smoke. This time, I didn't run. I stared back. Korin stepped beside me. Sarah behind us. We stood in silence, 3 people from 3 times, facing something older than time. He whispered again, not in words but in memory. I saw cities fall. I saw myself walking away from a burning throne. I asked Korin how it ended. He said it didn't, not yet. And then he handed me something I hadn't noticed he carried, a piece of stone shaped like a heart, warm to the touch. He said it belonged to me. My name lit up inside it, Ayla. That was the last thing I remember before waking up surrounded by jungle, alone. No Korin, no Sarah, just the sound of footsteps behind me, and a faint reflection in the river with hollow green eyes. The jungle didn't speak, it listened. Every breath I took felt borrowed. I didn't know how long I'd been walking or if I was walking in circles. The trees had faces, or maybe my mind painted them. A flicker passed between the branches. Not wind, not an animal. I didn't follow it. It led me anyway. The deeper I went, the more the ground shimmered like the air above hot stone. I found a structure half swallowed by roots. It wasn't there the day before. Or maybe it was and I couldn't see it. The doorway was just wide enough for me to slip through. Inside, silence pressed against my chest. The walls glowed faintly, covered in shifting symbols I had seen before in my dreams. My skin itched with memory. Behind me, someone spoke. Calm, low, unfamiliar. I turned. A young man, barely older than me, leaned against a pillar. His eyes were gold, not metaphorically, gold. He introduced himself as Elian. He said he had been waiting, but not for me, for time to crack again. His presence calmed something in me, but I didn't trust it. He wasn't alone. From the shadows stepped a woman. Sharp features, long dark hair, her hands marked with thin white lines like faded lightning. Her name was Maria. She looked at me like I was a problem she hadn't decided how to solve. Elian spoke for her, said she was a seer. I asked if they knew Korin. They both froze. Maria walked to me slowly, looked at the stone heart I still carried. She said it wasn't a relic, it was a mirror. It only showed what already lived inside. I told them about Sarah, about the stars turning green, about the reflection in the river. Elian nodded once. Maria didn't. Her expression darkened and she left without a word. Elian led me through the structure. He explained it was a crossing point, a place where different versions of time thinned. He said Varrock wasn't the threat, only the shadow of one. That night I heard whispers through the stone. Not voices, but pieces of emotion, anger, regret, the sensation of falling. I covered my ears, but it didn't stop. In the morning, Maria gave me a task. She placed a clay tablet in my hand and told me to bury it at the root of the hollow tree. She said I'd know the place when I saw it. Ilian followed me. He said she didn't trust me to return. I said I didn't either. The forest looked different again, leaves shaped like eyes, dirt soft as ash. We found the tree. Hollow, yes, but inside it pulsed a pale light. When I dropped the tablet, the light turned blue and the air shifted. We weren't alone. A figure rose from behind the tree, skin smooth like porcelain, face blurred. It moved like it was stitched together from moments. Ilian stepped forward and spoke in a language I didn't know. The figure paused, then looked directly at me. My body locked. It didn't speak. It just showed me things. A version of me running through fire. A version of me kneeling in a palace. A version of me not born yet, looking up at the stars like they were answers. I fell back. Ilian caught me. The figure melted into the mist. I looked at him and asked what that was. He said it was me, one of them, a possibility. We returned to the structure. Mireia waited with something burning in her eyes. She said the path had changed, that burying the tablet had reshaped the river of time. Then she touched my forehead. For a second, I saw nothing. Then I saw everything. Varrock wasn't chasing me. He was being pulled by me. I was the center. She whispered that not every thread ends cleanly. Some tangle, some choke, and some, if left alone, become doors. I didn't know if she was warning me or blaming me. I asked to leave. Ilian said I couldn't yet. The crossing point had to close, and only I could do it. I asked how. He said I already had. I just didn't know it. That night, I dreamed of Corin. He stood beside Sarah. They didn't move, just stared. Their mouths open, but no words came. Only light. I woke up alone. The jungle silent again, the structure gone. In its place, a circle of stones, cold to the touch, humming faintly. The heartstone was missing. But something else was in my hand. A strip of fabric, black, with the letters A and Y stitched in gold. The wind carried a low hum, like a lullaby, like a warning, like the sound of time folding itself one last time, and I walked forward, not to escape, not to finish, but to understand why I was never meant to return the same. I didn't plan on walking back to the stones. I thought I'd keep going forward, maybe find a road, maybe pretend none of it mattered. But something felt off. My legs moved differently, like they were tracing steps I didn't decide. The air had changed, not colder, but thinner, as if each breath carried a memory I hadn't made yet. The ground wasn't the same either. I looked down and noticed small patterns in the dirt, like handwriting pressed beneath the soil. I knelt, brushed them lightly with my fingers. They pulsed once, not with light, but with recognition. I stood and backed away. That's when I heard the laughter. It was quiet, almost playful. A child's. I turned, heart in my throat, and saw her. A girl, maybe 8 or 9, standing barefoot beneath the leaning cedar. Her dress looked old, handmade, and too clean for the forest. She didn't speak, just tilted her head and blinked slowly. I asked her name. She pointed toward the horizon where the trees broke. Then she ran. I followed. I don't know why. Maybe because I was tired of only hearing my own breath. Maybe because something in her felt familiar. But I didn't catch up. Instead, I found another person. A man this time. Mid-30s, curly hair tied back, sweat on his neck. He was holding a canvas bag and looked equally lost. He said his name was Dalen. Said he'd seen the girl too. He wasn't scared. Not exactly. More like annoyed. He said he came here looking for someone. His sister. But the trail kept changing, and now he wasn't sure if time was passing normally. I didn't ask how long he'd been here. His eyes already answered that. We decided to walk together. There was comfort in hearing someone else's footsteps. As we moved, the trees seemed to part more easily. The shadows shifted with a rhythm that felt rehearsed. That's when we saw her again. This time on a stone bridge stretched across a dried creek bed. She waved, then jumped. We ran to the edge and looked down. Nothing, only dust and silence. We climbed down, searched for her prints. Instead, we found a small box carved from bone-colored wood. Dalen opened it without hesitation. Inside was a dried flower and a key made of something that wasn't metal. I touched the flower. My mind snapped to a place I'd never seen but knew deeply. A house with no windows, a table set for one, the sound of humming through the walls. When I came to, Dalen was staring at me, asking if I'd seen it too. I nodded. He looked pale. Said his sister used to hum that same song when she was scared. We didn't talk much after that, just walked. Eventually, we found a clearing that didn't belong. Perfect circle. Grass too green, sky too still. At the center was a cabin. The wood looked wet, not from rain, but from memory. Dalen approached first. I wanted to stop him, but my throat wouldn't work. The door opened by itself. Inside was nothing, and everything. A mirror covered in soot. A candle that flickered without flame. A coat hanging from a hook, dripping water onto a dry floor. Dalen reached for the mirror, wiped it clean. Behind the glass was not his face. It was his sister's, smiling, crying, then gone. He stumbled back. The cabin groaned. I felt it too, like we were inside something breathing slowly. I told him we had to leave, but the door had vanished. In its place was a wall, rough with carvings I recognized. From the dirt, from the tablet, from my dream. We turned, and she was there. The girl again. Closer now, her eyes different, hollow but not empty. She pointed to Dalen, then to the coat, then to the mirror. He understood before I did. He said he wasn't meant to leave, that the cabin was a loop and he was the echo. I didn't argue. I couldn't. He placed the flower from the box on the table and sat down in the chair that was always his. I blinked. The girl was gone. The walls were bare. The door was back. I opened it and walked out, alone again. This time I didn't look back. By the time the sun dipped, I was near water. A shallow lake, still as glass. In its center, a small boat floated, anchored to nothing. I sat on the shore and watched it turn slowly. Something told me not to cross. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I reached into my pocket and found a second key, identical to Dalen's, cold as ice. And even now, days later, back in a town that feels too bright, I sometimes hear humming through my bedroom walls. It always stops when I open the door. I'd forgotten what silence really felt like until I came back. Not city silence, but the kind that clings to your skin even in daylight. I told myself I'd just stop by for a day or two, check the old cabin, and leave before it got dark. But the moment I stepped off the bus and felt the gravel shift under my boots, I knew something was off. The town hadn't changed much. Still the same 3-block stretch of empty stores, still the same crooked light post near the church. But the sky looked lower. The clouds didn't move, and no one made eye contact when I passed them. Not even Mrs. Redfern, who used to give me cinnamon bread every Saturday when I was a kid. I walked toward the cabin at the edge of Tallow Creek. It had belonged to my uncle, a quiet man who never let anyone inside. He passed last winter. They found his journal tucked behind a loose board near the fireplace, pages stained and brittle. I hadn't read it yet. I brought it with me now, folded in my coat. Inside, everything smelled like dust and pine. The furniture was still covered in sheets, and the window facing the creek had a long crack running through it. I dropped my bag and lit a candle. There was no power, and somehow that felt right, safer even. I sat by the window, listening. The creek had always made a soft, rushing sound. Tonight, I heard nothing, just the occasional snap of branches, like something testing its weight outside. I opened the journal. Most of it didn't make sense. Repetitions of names I didn't recognize, dates scratched out, phrases written upside down or in the margins. But one line was underlined twice. It read, "She doesn't knock. If you hear the bell, it's already too late." I read it again, then I heard it. A bell. Not loud, not from a church tower, just one soft chime, like someone dropping silver onto tile. I stood up, trying to decide if I'd imagined it. But then came another, closer this time. I stepped outside. The air was colder. The trees looked taller. A woman was standing near the creek. Long coat, hood pulled up, hands clasped in front of her. I called out. She didn't move. Behind me, someone touched my shoulder. I turned fast, heart thudding. It was a man, maybe my age, hair damp, eyes sharp. Said his name was Caleb. Said he'd seen me arrive. Said he didn't think anyone would come back here. He asked if I'd seen her too. The woman in the coat. I nodded. He didn't look surprised, just tired. He told me she appears to people who carry regret. Said the land remembers, and so does she. That's why the air feels heavier here. We went inside the cabin. I closed the door, checked the lock even though I knew it wouldn't matter. Caleb sat across from me and pulled a folded map from his jacket. On it were marks along the creek, each with a small X. I asked what they meant. He said they were places where people had disappeared. One of them was the cabin. He pointed to the fireplace, told me there was a hidden space behind it, but not just where the journal had been. He said my uncle used to talk to someone through it. Said the fireplace wasn't just for fire, but for listening. I didn't want to believe him. but I still found myself kneeling down, pressing my ear to the cool stone. At first, nothing, then something faint. A woman's voice, whispering something I couldn't make out. Caleb grabbed my arm and pulled me back. Said if I listened too long, she'd find her way through. That's how it starts, he said. You hear her, you let her in without meaning to. We sat in silence for a while. Then the bell rang again. This time it came from inside the house. I stood. Caleb didn't move. He looked afraid to speak. I followed the sound into the hallway and saw the attic door cracked open, though I knew it had been nailed shut since last fall. I didn't want to go up, but I did. Each step creaked in protest. At the top, the attic was empty except for a single chair and a mirror propped against the far wall. The mirror wasn't dusty. I walked closer. I didn't see my reflection. I saw the woman in the coat standing behind me. No face, just a shape of her where a face should be. I turned. The attic was still empty. Back downstairs, Caleb was gone. Only his map remained, marked with one more X over the cabin itself. I stayed until morning. The mirror never showed my reflection again. The bell didn't ring, but every now and then the wind carries something soft, something like a voice, saying my name, but not quite. And I never answer, not out loud.